Hey everyone, welcome to Talking to the Moon. We are still in the second season, and today I have with me another guest. His name is Shlok. I know Shlok from our time together at Georgia Tech. We were in the 2019 Fall Admits cohort. Right now, Shlok is a software engineer at HP Enterprise. But before that, he used to work at Amazon as a software engineer. And there was a period when he left Amazon or when he had to leave Amazon and he joined HP.
Yeah.
And today we are going to talk about that period.
Yeah.
And that period was of getting laid off from Amazon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to unpack here in a single story of someone getting laid off. So we will address that bit by bit, one aspect after another. But before that happens, I want to give our audience, especially the ones who are not in the tech industry, some context of why we are talking about this and the current scenario. So we are in 2023 right now. It's 10th May. And since October last year, which is 2022, companies have been laying thousands and thousands of people off. And this has hit the tech sector very hard. I don't think personally this has happened so much in the history of the tech sector.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the statistics, and according to layoffs.fyi, as of today, 168,243 people have been laid off just this year into 2023.
Just 2023. Oh,
Yeah.
not even 22.
Exactly. And this already exceeds the number of people that were laid off in total last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that gives us a good picture of what really is happening. And right now, when I'm speaking about this, it sounds like a statistic, okay, like these many people. But what perhaps a lot of people don't realize is that every single person of these 168,000 has their own story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but mostly these stories have been a lot about being really anxious, especially for people who are immigrants in the US.
Yeah.
Because they're on visa and then there are tight timelines for them to find a better job or another job. So I think the past 6 months have been extremely stress-inducing, extremely anxious for a lot of people, even the ones who did not get laid off.
Yeah.
Because there's always a possibility of this happening.
Yeah, exactly. When you know that a company is coming up with another round of layoffs,
Yeah.
it's always stressful, even though you might or might not be affected.
Right, correct. So let's get started. Let's talk to Shlok regarding this. So let's go back to October 2022.
Yeah.
This was the time when you were working at Amazon.
Yeah.
And I know that you're working in Amazon Luna. So I don't know much about it, and I don't know if most of our audience members do.
Yeah.
So would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We both graduated from Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So during the summer of 2020, I actually interned at Amazon Luna.
Right.
So Amazon Luna is basically a cloud gaming platform which enables customers to play whichever games they want from wherever they want.
Okay.
And you do not need a expensive device. So you do not need like an Xbox console or a PS
Right.
console or even a gaming machine. You
Right.
can play from your iPhone, from your tablet, or anywhere, and
Right.
all you need is a decent Wi-Fi connection. So it was mostly in the startup phase. So Amazon has a culture of mini startups in itself, where they are building new products. Some
Right.
might hit, some might not hit the
Right.
market. Some might be well received by the customers. Some may
Right.
not be well received by the customers. So
Right.
Luna was itself a startup within Amazon. So I was intern in 2020, and then I came back as a full-time employee in 2021.
Right.
So I was part of the team called Social Team,
Mhm.
which was responsible for developing social features on the platform. So
I
not
see.
per se game hosting and stuff,
Right,
but
right.
mostly on third-party integrations with third-party companies like Discord or Ubisoft.
Okay.
Then having friends feature where you can add friends,
Right.
talk with them, so voice chats and stuff like that. Then
Right.
have user playlists. So like if you're playing this game, then what game should be recommended to you
Got
next, and stuff like that, basically. So I started as a new grad,
Right.
and then moved on to be a mid-size engineer who had domain expertise in several other
I see.
areas also. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And this was 2022 October, which was just when there were news items on maybe Blind or
Yeah.
just in news in general about possibilities of layoffs. What was your mindset during that time? I think Facebook was one of the first few companies who actually spoke about this a bit more concretely. I remember Mark saying that we perhaps have too many people that shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So during all this time, when you of course did not know about your impending layoff, what was your mindset?
Yeah, so I think during that time, I didn't really give too much heed into that thing. So I had that funny story about when, so me and couple of my other friends, we were on a road trip to, so I used to stay in Seattle back then.
Right.
So we are going to Olympic Game Farm to
Yeah.
like feed animals basically. And at that time, one of my friend Rishi, he actually read an article in the car saying that, oh, I guess Amazon is going to lay off. And we were just
yeah.
making some jokes. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
let's see what happens and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that was just a weekend before I actually got laid off
Right.
in the month of November.
Yeah.
So I didn't pay much attention to it, but of course there were like some signs
Right.
which I noticed but ignored because
Right.
you don't want to think negatively, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
there were definitely some signs which we saw,
Right.
but it was very fast in our case. So it was basically, it came like an evening, and then the next morning we were notified that we are getting laid off. So
I see.
yeah.
So okay, so let me like zoom in into this timeline. So
Yeah.
you were on the road trip, and
Yeah.
when you read this news, did this thought ever cross your mind that perhaps you could be one of those first few people to get laid off?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So the news basically was like Amazon is going to lay off people in devices,
I see.
but they didn't specify they were engineers or stuff. So
Right.
whenever generally Amazon like does something like that, it's mostly like those warehouse workers and stuff who gets
Right.
affected first,
Correct.
then HR, and then the engineers come if things go haywire basically.
Correct.
So we thought like it would be in that phase
That
and not on the
phase.
engineering aspect of that
Right.
phase, because our team had just hired 3 more engineers 3 months before all this thing. So we're like,
Correct.
okay, they must have actually planned this. If they're hiring more,
Right.
there should not be layoffs coming if they're
Right.
hiring. So that was the mindset we had.
Right.
But yeah, it was something else which happened.
Cut to the day all this happened. So you were on this road trip, and
Yeah.
then you came back.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
So basically, like, it was Saturday when we were on the road trip. Then
Right.
Sunday we just chilled at our places,
Right.
and then it was Monday.
Yeah.
And then I had a one-on-one with my lead SD and my manager, just formalizing my promotion, which was due next quarter. So
I
they just
see.
agreed on that, and I'm like, okay, it's all good. And then Monday evening, I just went to my place. I was just
Yeah.
chilling, and then a second, like another SD3, she messaged me
Right.
telling, did you get any email about Luna update? That was the
Yeah.
title
Yeah.
for the layoffs. So, which I had not got. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I think we are safe, is what we assumed.
Yeah.
And then at night around 10, so my colleague Neil, he actually called me. We were on a call. We're just discussing something like just random stuff. And at that time, I just told him, like, if you're on the laptop, just check if you got an email. And it's like, oh, I think we got an email.
Right.
And I'm like, don't kid with me. And it's like, I'm not kidding. It's, like literally we got it. And then we realized it was around 10 p.m. Monday
I see.
that our senior manager sent that email, saying Luna update. And then what?
So the email just said update. There was no details about getting laid off.
Yeah, no. So it was just Luna update.
Right.
But what we figured out that we are getting laid off because there were 2 emails been sent. So
Right.
in our team, our entire team got laid off apart from one colleague who is a very good friend of mine.
Right.
So I messaged him like, did he receive? And he's like, yeah, even I received.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, maybe we all are getting. And then I was checking the recipients. So there was one HR contact
Right.
in our email,
Right.
and there was no HR contact in their email.
Oh.
So it became very obvious, like, okay, we are getting laid off, and they have been notified that we are getting laid off.
I see. So this was November 14th.
Yeah, around that. Yeah.
10.
So it got the email November 14th. Yeah.
Right.
And November 15th was our meeting at 10 a.m. morning.
I see.
Yeah.
So November 15th, the day it actually all happened. Do you remember that day, hour by hour, like you woke up and like you went to the office, how it all happened?
So 13th night we got that email. I
Yeah.
could not really sleep. I just talked with my parents. I'm like, I think I'm getting laid off. My
Yeah.
father's like, that's fine. That's life.
Yeah.
You'll get something new. He was
Yeah.
pretty chill about it. He's like, you can't do anything if the business unit decides to lay off half the employees in your
Right.
org.
Right.
It's and plus I just talked about my promotion, so it wasn't
Right.
any work related issue or something
Right.
which I was not performing to the level. So, but still there was a bit of guilt, like why me and why
Yeah,
not
of
someone
course,
else. So
yeah.
I was sleeping a bit, then waking up 2 hours, checking my Slack, checking my emails, then again sleeping and stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
till 9 or 9:30, then I took a bath, like a shower, and
Right.
then like attended the call. So it ended by like 10:20, 10:30.
I see.
Our senior manager was he's actually a pretty nice dude. So
Yeah.
he was like, you could see the emotions when he was actually telling, because
Yeah.
we were very close. Like, since it was a startup culture, everyone
Right.
knew each other.
Very
We had
well.
we had hung out. I knew the senior manager's family.
Right.
I hung out with their kids and
Right.
stuff like that. So
Right.
it was pretty a close knit family, right?
Right.
So I could see that emotion in it. So yeah, of course, after that, I became very emotional. I cried for a bit. Then around, I think it was 11:30. I was just sitting. I don't think I was just processing what happened here. I didn't check my phone, anything.
Right.
And even Neil, like, who was another colleague of mine, he got affected.
Right.
Paul didn't.
Right.
And James is another colleague, he also got affected. So
Right.
Neil called me at 11:30. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing, just sitting, maybe crying." And then he's like, "Okay, let's meet." So I think that lunch, I don't think I'll ever forget in my life. So I think that was something which actually showed like people cared, even colleagues cared. So then Neil, so I just booked an Uber, went to his place. Then me and Neil, then Paul called us because he didn't get affected. So he told like, "Where are you guys?" And like, "We are just at a home. We are going for lunch." And he's like, "Okay, I'll join." So he came. And then James, we three used to stay in the Bellevue area, and James used to stay like 20 miles away in Seattle.
Okay, I see.
So he also got affected. So we just pinged him like, "If you want, you can join us." And then he's like, "Yeah, definitely, I'm joining." And then he came to us, and then we four of us had a very good lunch. We were just laughing. We were also sad, of course, about what happened. At that point, it was very, very nice because I was very sad. Like, I could see that I'm very sad. Neil was like neutral. Paul was sad because because we were not there. And surprisingly, Paul left the company 1 month after we left because he's like, "If you guys are not there, then what's the point?" So he just moved to a startup after that. And James was the guy who was like, he's like the dude who never gets sad, like, ever. So he was so happy. He was not happy, like, he was so frustrated, but he didn't show that frustration on his face. And he was like the motivation for us that day. So yeah, that's what like, we did like lunch till 3 or something, and then I just went to Neil's place and I slept over there. So me and Neil just, like, we too love playing FIFA. So we just played FIFA the entire evening. And then next morning we woke up, we were like better than before, and then we started working on resume and all that stuff. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So that was a pretty interesting day, I would say. I'm sure y'all must have gone through a whole range of emotions.
Yeah, definitely.
But after all this happens, at one point you have to pick yourself up and like start moving in the next direction. Forward.
Yeah.
So how did you put yourself together and start moving forward?
Yeah, I think it took me like a day or two to get myself together. So I think by the second day evening, I think the first thing which we wanted to do is basically I had not updated my resume since a year because I was enjoying my work. I had a great time with my colleagues. We would hang out and stuff. So I didn't want to switch a job just for compensation, basically. So I updated my resume. I added all the stuff which I worked on. Then reviewed the resume with other colleagues, with other friends, just making sure everything is in place. Is something critical not there and stuff like that. And once the resume part was done, then we started applying, basically. So there were like different strategies which we used. So it was like a team effort between me and Neil. So either he would come over to my place or I would go over to his place, and we would study together. We would apply together, and then we would also assist in interviews, like just prepping him, like taking mock interviews and stuff like that. So once we had our resumes ready, they were like, we basically started searching on LinkedIn, like what are the openings and stuff. Firstly, we reached out to, so first thing which we did after getting a resume done was getting a LinkedIn Premium, because now there was the time of making connections, using those connections which are already there. So we took a LinkedIn Premium, both of us. Luckily, we had a colleague, she works in LinkedIn, like ex-Amazon colleague. So she just gave us LinkedIn Premium subscriptions. So once we got that, then the time came of applying. So for applying, we did like different strategies. So what we did, so whenever I wanted to apply for a particular company, assuming company X, what I would do, I would first see if there are any openings in that company. You could easily find it on the company's website or LinkedIn. That's an easy way. Once you have those job IDs with you, then I would go on LinkedIn and search if there are any recruiters who are hiring for that company. Not even that role, just for that company. Because even if the recruiter is not hiring for that role, she or he can redirect you to the correct recruiter within a day or two max. So then I would, since we had LinkedIn Premium, we could send those cold messages. So we would send those cold messages to those recruiters. And if there were no recruiters, or if they didn't reply, like suppose in a day, then we would search hiring managers. Are there any hiring managers hiring? Then we would just send like, these are the job IDs and this is my resume. Like once they accept your connection, then only you can send your resume. But in the cold email, you can at least send job IDs and the links, basically. So we would do that, and if that also didn't work, and if there are no hiring managers, then you would just take referrals from even random people, because referrals are better than just cold applying. And if you don't get referrals, then I would just cold apply, basically.
I see. And speaking of LinkedIn Premium, you also wrote a LinkedIn post, which a lot of people, of course, do. And that post received like 7,300 plus reactions, 400 comments, more than 70 like reshares of the post. Like what happens is, I feel like when you're just cold applying, it's just you and your colleagues and your friends, you might end up like being in a bubble. But when you put yourself out there on LinkedIn, and when you get so many reactions, and when so much support pours in, how did that feel?
Yeah, I think I was pretty amused by that, honestly, because I'd seen other posts and they would get like 500 or 600 likes. And like, I don't think there's any point putting, but like my colleague Paul, he actually told like, there's no harm in not putting. It's like, worst case, it does not get picked up. But luckily it got picked up. And I got like, not just support, like I had some directors who actually had commented on that post, and from where I got offer letters from there. So at the end, I got like 7 different offer letters from different companies after getting laid off.
We will get to all of that.
So I think that LinkedIn post was actually very helpful, because what happened, like 2 directors had commented like, please reach out if you want to interview. Then I would reach out to them, and they would connect me to the CTO, connect me to like L7, like a senior manager, and then they would figure out, okay, where can we fill him, or if there is an opening, if not, if can we create an opening basically for him basically, and then they would have those interviews. So I directly got in contact with those people who are in power, in position of hiring, not just like a recruiter, because recruiter at one point gets limited, right? Because he or she will require those approvals, but these people can create those approvals, not just approve it. So that was, I think, very helpful when it went to like, when I got those reactions and posts.
So that was actually one of my questions, that when people comment like, hey, commenting for better reach, or like even if they just like and share posts, does it actually help? And you did answer, like, I mean, if directors were reaching out to you, and if that gave you visibility, I'm sure it like
exactly, because like those directors and those senior managers weren't my connections, right? Those would be 1 degree, 2 degree, even 3rd degree or 4th degree connections. So people even liking, sharing, or even commenting. I think commenting makes the most effect, even if you just comment CFBR, which is but that is like, I would encourage doing that. Like if you see someone, then that's I think that helps. But it's like how the algorithm works, I'm not sure.
We don't know.
Because my colleague, like Neil's post he got like 1,000 like or something. It's still much better than normal. But and also I think at that time, since we were still in the early phase of layoffs, there weren't as many posts coming up on your feed as like that.
There was no saturation.
There was no saturation, exactly. And if you see my post also, it wasn't anything special. It was just like
it was a very normal post, like straightforward.
Exactly.
Post. So you mentioned to me what schedule you had, like your colleagues, you all work together to apply. Can you tell me a bit more about those 4-5 months? How who were your support during that time? Did you have friends around you? Were you staying alone? Who like had your
definitely back? So it was like lucky me, touch wood. It wasn't 4-5 months. Like I got my offer within 25 days when I got laid off.
Oh, perfect.
So it wasn't like, so I got laid off November 15. By December 22 or something, I had my offer letter in hand.
I see.
So it wasn't that bad, honestly, for me. But during the support time, right? So that's when you realize who is there for you and who is not there for you. So at that point, there were a lot of friends. Some friends from Georgia Tech, some friends from my undergrad who would reach out to me. I used to stay with a roommate whom I didn't know much. So it often definitely I felt alone when I was struggling through this. There were times when I would just become sad and not do anything because of all this, because it's just unnecessary stress. And in addition of, it's not that even we are citizens or green card holders, right? So it's a timeline which we have to match, or else we have to leave the country. So I think the first thing which I did, so even before my resume, is just that, so I'm a very financially independent person. So I like to keep my finances sorted. So I have an app which tells me like my entire portfolio. So I just opened it, I like updated it, and I saw, okay, how much have I saved? If I have to go to India, is there anything like, do I still owe anything, or are there any loans left? And after seeing that, I was pretty happy. Like, okay, even if I go to India, there's no regret. I stayed for 2 years. I did my master's. I came originally for master's, right? And then work is just addition to it. So I worked at a great company. I made some very good colleagues. So I think when you are in despair or when you are at the low, you start realizing your highs is what I realized.
That's actually true.
Yeah. So that's what I realized. Like, so far I had been so lucky. It's just that one place I was unlucky.
Yeah.
And that should not be the end, basically. So that was like my daily motivation. And then I'm very close to my grandma. So I still talk to her every day.
Yeah.
So I would call her and she would obviously get worried because of this. And talk to my dad. And I'm talking about my family. So I have a brother whose name is Tej. He's my cousin brother. He stays in Australia. But whenever there's any difficulty, so I didn't get IIT back when we were trying for it. So at that time also I got very sad because I didn't get. So he literally pops up when I'm sad or when I'm in trouble, and then he just disappears again. So we have not been contacting in the last 3 months because now everything is now back to normal. But during that time, he would message, call every day. He would play, like I love FIFA. He also loves FIFA. So he would play from Australia, I would play from here. So it would be like he would wake up at 6 just to play FIFA and then again sleep. Because I would only play in evenings. I wouldn't play at 6 in the morning. So that was something which I'll never forget. So those were the things. So those were like my sources of strength. And in terms of friends also, like my colleagues, like as I told, Paul, Neil, James, I think those were the people who were really close to me during that phase. And of course, there are my Georgia Tech friends and my undergrad friends, and also some friends in Seattle who would come over just to so there was a friend who she went to India during that time, and then she took the effort to go to my place and bring the sweets and stuff which I really like. And then I think the day she landed, that evening she came and just delivered it to my house and just sat for half an hour and then went away. So that is something which I'll never forget. So those were the sweet parts and the motivational parts. Yeah.
Nice. So Shlok, when you look back at the situation, your time from November to maybe mid-December, the way a lot of these layoffs happen is that, there's an email or there's a call and they just announce that, okay, these 10,000 people are going to be let go of. A lot of people get really angry because they feel that it wasn't personal enough, and in the end they end up feeling like a statistic for the company. So when you look back, do you have any resentment towards Amazon or your organization? Like, what is your mindset when you look back at all of this?
Yeah, so as you said, right, so at the end it's a statistic, right? So I think that's it's not just the companies, it's also from your end. Like, either you're working because you really are passionate about it, or either you're working because you want to do stuff which the you want to do stuff outside of work which the company allows you to do because they pay you. Because you can use that money to travel, you can use that money to buy stuff and stuff like that, right? So it's always a two-way relationship. So in my case, I was really passionate and I was earning well. So there was of course a bit of resentment saying because I was leading a project which actually got released. So Luna became international in UK, Germany, and Canada recently.
I see.
And from my team, I was the lead engineer who actually internationalized all of our backend services and stuff like that.
I see.
So of course there was some resentment, but as I told, our senior manager was actually he felt when he was telling it, and we could see the emotions when he was talking. So there was no resentment on him. Perhaps there were some other folks who one was reporting to could have done better in my personal opinion, but everyone is a human, and they may have different ways of presenting, but and I don't think I have any resentment to Amazon. In general, they were very flexible in the terms that they laid off, they notified us in November, but they told they'll lay off in January. So for 2 months I was still employed. I was not I didn't lose any, and plus they gave us a severance package also with it. So I wouldn't say there's any hard feelings, but yeah, I would have wanted to continue my time at Amazon. It feels like leaving on your own terms is always better than making someone leave. So of course, so there's some regret in that, but yeah, nothing I could do.
True. And what a lot of people also perhaps sometimes forget is your managers and perhaps their managers are also just following orders from their managers.
Exactly.
So as you rightly said, everyone is human and it's a big system.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to pinpoint
one-on-one individual. Yeah, exactly. And plus in such companies, especially in the US, diversity is a lot more, right? So the way you express something is a lot different than suppose a Chinese person expresses or suppose an Australian person expresses. So that thing also often gets
Varies.
misrepresented. Exactly.
Correct.
Like they may be as emotional as they can be because that's what they've experienced in their life. But you are a lot more emotional to them, so you feel like they are not being emotional enough, or they are not supporting enough.
Correct.
Basically.
Yeah. So the way they express and the way you take it,
yeah,
like so many factors.
Exactly. There is a lot of external factors going, and plus a lot of spineless thoughts running in your head at that time, right?
Yeah.
So you just want, like, it's I think a human tendency where you want to it's always like you would not take the blame for yourself. You would like to blame someone else and think I was so innocent, I didn't do anything, basically. So I think that's just a human tendency which is very difficult to remove. And
true, like your first thought would be a bit more defensive.
Exactly.
But then I think later when you sit back and think about it, it's like, okay, like, these people were also not completely under control.
Exactly. So like, I just giving like a bit of information. So my father would always tell me, he's like, your org is great, your colleagues are great, but your org is not making money.
Right.
So it's like, if the economy goes down, your org will be cut down. So he warned me 3 months before all this.
Right.
So his vision was much more ahead of me. But I took that decision. I could have applied 3 months before by just listening to him, right? Or maybe switched internally within Amazon, because Amazon is a very big company.
Yeah.
But I took that decision. No, I wanted to work for this product. I wanted to be with my colleagues and have that bond and work on that. So that was like, on hindsight, if I see, that was a conscious decision which I took, even when I had those indications that I might switch, or I should switch, basically. Yeah.
So you mentioned your Luna colleagues. Whenever you've mentioned them today, you've spoken really fondly of them. Are you still in touch with them?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So a funny story. So James now stays in SF.
I see.
He came yesterday in rush hour traffic 1 hour just to meet me. We had dinner, then he went back.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. So like, we are really close with each other. We feel like that bond is still there. I'm still in contact with Paul, who is I think now in East Coast. I'm still in contact with Neil. I'll be visiting Neil a couple months down the road. So I feel like that's what I say. So more than resentment, it's like the friends and the family which I got out of that. Even my senior manager, like even my manager who actually left before the layoffs, I'm still in contact with him. Yeah, even my first manager when I was an intern, I'm still in contact with him. So he referred me when I got laid off. Then there was another colleague, she left Amazon and started at LinkedIn, so she gave us the LinkedIn Premium. So I think whenever you are at a company, even though you might not like the work, or you might not be very passionate about the work, try to understand your colleagues, or try to make bonds with them. Of course, you may not be able to make bonds with every one of them, but even if you like get 1 or 2 good friends out of them, I think that's a worthwhile experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of people who go through adversity together, the bond they form is just something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I'm sure, like, of course, had this not happened, you would still have been really good friends, but I feel, especially because of this, I think sometimes the bond gets even stronger.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. Like that, as I told, like that lunch which was there, right? So that is something which I'll never forget. And that is something which I would like to do in my lifetime for some other friend if I get the opportunity, if something like that happens. So that is something in which this is all hindsight, not at that time. It's like you feel that togetherness, but also you learn like, okay, this is how he reacts in this situation, this is how I can react. Or of course you may not be able to master it, but like, this is how, like, look at how calm he is, even though something like this happened. Like if I take the example of James, or like, look at how selfless Paul was when he just came and he would like be okay with like what we were doing and stuff like that. So those are the kind of things
you learn from
one from another. Exactly.
I see. I actually remember a very funny incident. It's actually not funny. I remember a very interesting incident. Very recently, I had gone to Chicago, and I was coming back. My flight landed at SFO airport, and from there I took a cab from there to my house here in San Jose. And I booked the cab. The person's name was an Indian name. So when the cab came, he got out and he looked like sort of our age-ish. I was like, cool. And then we got into the cab and we got talking. And somehow he told me that, oh, I have just started this Uber thing like 1 week ago. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Why did you do that? And he was like, actually, because I got laid off.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry that happened. Where did you get laid off from? And he said, I got laid off from Intel, which is the company I work at. And like, that just changed the whole dynamic of the cab, right? I was like, oh my God, like, like, I'm really sorry that happened, and let me know how I can help you. But exactly, like, you learn from one another. Like, when I saw him, how calm he was, how he started like doing this Uber thing. So I agree, completely agree. Like, you learn from one another in times of adversity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, if one thing I have to like just conclude on this is like whatever happens like with layoffs and stuff, it's not the end.
Right.
Yeah, there are better things to do. You might find something you are really passionate about and just switch industry. So a friend of mine, he also got laid off. He does not work in engineering anymore.
Oh.
He loves designing, so he joined Adobe, and now he's a designer like a design engineer there. But he does not do coding. He's not an SDE anymore. So he finally got what he wanted to do.
Wow,
basically.
that's perfect.
So yeah, it can work out for people also. Yeah.
Right. And I was going to ask you about advices you would like to give people, but you sprinkled a lot of those advices throughout our conversation.
Yeah.
But I think this last bit that you spoke about, that you might end up finding something you never could have otherwise.
Exactly.
That's also pretty beautiful. I think we are towards the end of this conversation. Thank you so much, first of all, for speaking about this. It takes a lot of courage to like come out and speak about getting laid off, especially. And I think it's pretty timely because I'll be releasing this pretty soon. So it will be very timely to what's happening
in the current scenarios. Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, and thanks, Rohit, for especially like taking the initiative first, at least start podcast. I think you are one of my few friends who actually does this and who's actually passionate about it.
Right.
So I hope like season 3, season 4 keeps coming.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for like preparing these questions. And it was a very insightful session, and I really loved talking about this. I think it's the first time I've actually opened up in public to anyone.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for choosing this platform to do this. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. I guess we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
Yep. See you.
Bye.
Bye.